Hello everyone, this is Mr. Cole, and in this video we're going to go over everything you need to know to get ready for your final exam for U.S. History. So please take a few minutes to watch this video carefully, and would really help to have your study guide in front of you. So for this study guide, as it says here, please do complete this entire packet to prepare for your exam, and there is a checklist on pages 3 to 6 of the packet that you will want to go through step by step. And also here's your final schedule, so make sure you know when your final exams will be, not only for U.S. History, but all of your classes. So if you could turn to page 2 of your study guide for the U.S. History final exam, you will see the prompt. And I want to go ahead and go over this with you because the first thing to do for this exam is really to make sure you understand the prompt. And for this final exam, there's basically two parts. You're going to have some multiple choice questions over the texts, and then you're going to write an essay. So for the prompt, it says, on October 7th, 2008, there was a presidential debate between Democratic Party's nominee for president, Barack Obama, and John McCain, the Republican nominee. During the debate, Senator McCain, who was a prisoner of war and widely regarded as a hero during the Vietnam War, and who has been a U.S. Senator from Arizona since 1987, made the following statement. So this is the key statement for your essay. His statement was, "The fact is, America is the greatest force for good in the history of the world." And so therefore your prompt, your task is to do the following: to support, refute, or modify this statement based upon specific evidence, your knowledge of U.S. history, and from the documents provided. So again, you're either going to support the statement, meaning you agree with this quote, you're going to refute it and say why you disagree, or you could modify it and change this quote somehow into something that you do agree with and then explain why you did that. In your essay, here are the things you want to make sure you do. Like we've done with our essays throughout the year, you want to take a clear position on the prompt with a well-developed thesis statement. And then you're going to need to incorporate texts. You're going to incorporate all 3 of the provided texts into your response. 2 of them are attached to this study guide, and you will get the 3rd at the exam. And you need to analyze at least 1 quote from each text. This should include stating your opinion on the quote and how it relates to your thesis statement. So you're going to basically need to pick 1 quote from each of the 3 texts and incorporate it into your essay. You can pick a quote that you disagree with, and you would just explain why you disagree with it and how that relates to your thesis statement. The next bullet point here says that you need to bring in 2 examples, either from our foreign policy unit or your knowledge of U.S. history. What that means is you can bring in examples from anything we studied this year. And after most of our units this year, you did a reflection handout. I'll be giving those back to you, and you can use that information on your exam if you would like. And you also need to include a counterclaim. So just to summarize the steps for the exam, you're going to need to read the 3 texts. 2 of them you get right now in your review packet. 1 of them, the 3rd one, I'll give to you when you come in to take the exam. The second step is you're going to have multiple choice questions for each text. And then step number 3, which is worth the most points for your grade, is you're going to write an essay responding to the prompt. So what I'd like you to do now is look at page 3 of your study guide, and this is the checklist you should be following. So I just want to talk through the steps that's on this checklist. So first of all, step number 1 here, make sure you have read and understand the prompt. And that's what I just read through for you there on page 2. So make sure you understand what the essay is asking you to do. And again, you're either going to agree with, disagree with, or modify that statement, and then write an essay explaining why. And then make sure, for step 2, to help you with this, make sure you can answer these questions about the prompt. What does the quote from John McCain mean in your own words? And again, the quote is, "The fact is, America is the greatest force for good in the history of the world." Next step, make sure you know what the prompt is asking you to do. And then think about what is your initial reaction or opinion based upon the prompt. How are you going to answer the prompt? Are you going to agree, disagree, or modify? For step number 3, make sure you have carefully read and annotated the 2 texts that have been provided to you. So you have 2 texts that you need to read and annotate. Text B, which is on pages 8 to 9 of this packet, and text C, which is on pages 12 to 13. Also, there are practice questions. As you read those 2 texts, make sure you answer these practice questions. This will really help you on the final exam by helping you understand each text, and also the multiple choice questions on the exam will be a lot easier if you've taken the time to do this. Please note, you cannot bring any notes or readings to use on the exam. You will get new copies of each text on the day of the exam. And then also, again, there will be a 3rd text, which is text A, provided at the exam. So step 4 on this checklist, make sure that you create a thesis statement that you will use in the essay. This should be sophisticated, using sophisticated language, really explaining why in a convincing way that you agree with, disagree with, or are going to modify that quote. Make sure Ms. Ball or I check that for you to give you some feedback. And you can email that to us or come to office hours. Step 5, you're going to pick 1 quote from each text. Now you can only do that for text B and C because I'm not going to give you text A until the exam. But make sure you've gone through and decided which quotes you're going to use. And remember, this could be a quote you don't agree with, but you can give the quote, explain the quote, and then say why you disagree with it as a way to support your thesis. And again, you can't bring your notes to the exam. It's a closed note exam, but you should study, meaning you've picked and you will remember which quote you're going to use. Then moving on to page 6 of your study guide. Page 5 of your study guide. You're going to also want to pick ahead of time 2 examples from what we have studied this year that will support your thesis statement. So this should be an example from history, something we've studied, that either goes along with agreeing with the quote, with disagreeing with the quote, or with changing the quote in some way. And as a reminder, here at the bottom, here's the topics we've studied this year. Our first unit was on the American War for Independence. Our second unit focused on a new nation, meaning the United States when it was a new country, and the issue of slavery and the Constitution. Our third unit focused on westward expansion or westward conquest, and you created an argument explaining whether we should call it westward expansion or call it westward conquest. We had a unit on the Civil War. We had a unit on Reconstruction after the Civil War. We had a short unit on civil rights, which included our midterm, where you compared a speech from Martin Luther King and a speech from Malcolm X. And of course we had NHD, and you're more than welcome to bring in an example from your National History Day project. That'd be a great support to your essay if it fits. Then after spring break, we finished up our unit on immigration, and for the last several weeks we've been doing our focus on foreign policy history and the United States' role in a changing world. So that is really the checklist you want to go through to be ready for the exam. So please let me know if you have any questions. What you have in the rest of your packet, on page 6 there is a checklist to help you plan out your essay. On page 7 there's a rubric, and then what you have in the rest of the packet are the 2 texts that you should read ahead of time, text B and text C. Make sure you've done the practice questions. We will have some class time to work on this, our last 2 full days of class. Otherwise, this should be homework, and please make sure you're coming to office hours or emailing Ms. Ball or myself if you have any questions. Hope this video helped understand a little bit more about what you need to do to get ready for the final exam, and thanks for watching.